Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, joined by David Bozell of For America, foramerica.org. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Very upset with you.
Why? What did I do?
We're just the folks here. We're the folks looking out for you here in Idaho. We're not fancy schmancy, east of the Great River people. We like to refer to ourselves as the mountain people. We don't go to Cabo, Babo, Dabo, these exotic locations. We might, go to McCall or the Oregon coast or Salt Lake for a vacation. And, we like having you on so much. And David, this is how I show my affection, by badgering you. Let me give you that disclaimer before you hang up on me, which has never happened before in my life. But,
we're trying to figure out where Dabo, Babo, and whatever the hell else was, where that is on the map.
That old Animal House. Forget it. He's rolling. Anyway, the only thing is, we love to have you on once a week, and then you're like on vacation in Barbados or Turks and Cancun or Sandals. I don't know where you've been. Good to have you back.
Thank you. I did take my wife, who was celebrating her birthday, to Bermuda on a whim, and was tempted never to come back. I'd never been there. Gorgeous place. But yeah, I did it, and I don't apologize for it. And I didn't have to wire any money through Michael Cohen to get it done.
Boy, that's crazy. Let me ask you: when you live in the outside world, because your life, you've been wired to be in that bubble, to hold people accountable, sometimes to do uncomfortable things for the right reasons, to be vilified, and then you're like a civilian. Was it tough, like you said, coming back to it?
It was, yes. Short answer, yes. And then I started immediately looking for Cabo on the map and right. All the other places you listed off, and where's the next vacation? Because you do, it actually, in some seriousness, when you're in the sort of political consultant / analyst world that most of Washington D.C. is in, we're all in some form of advertising, one form or another. But with Trump, the Trump era has been exhausting. It's much more so than Obama ever was. And so you do find yourself like looking for that next wave, like that next vacation, that next bit of time off, much more than anyone ever used to. At least like my own personal experience, but I think I speak for a lot of people, because he can wear on you. Just the nonstop action that he provides, and it begins every single morning on his Twitter feed, and you just got to get up and do it all over again.
Right, and then you, 3 a.m, you're sitting there, you're up for gosh knows whatever reason, and you look at your phone, and there's Trump. There's the president.
You're right.
Then you're right. It's Saturday afternoon, hanging out. Maybe you get to, and there's the president again.
There it is again. Same thing. Like, well, finally, he's going to go to New Jersey and spend a week, vacationing, and get some golf in it. Nope, there he is again. So on your feeds. I mean, he's relentless in that way. I actually think going forward with the midterms, he's got to actually put his foot on the gas even more. I don't want to see one more day of him being on defense with this stuff. And I think it's really going to hurt him and his party in the midterms if the White House is just continuously having to deal with Cohen, Comey, Mueller, Cohen, Comey, Mueller, Cohen, Comey, Mueller all day, every day. He needs to get out of Washington and be campaigning for his agenda from here until November 6th, and go on offense. And so I hope they choose that path. Not sure they will, though.
Right. Let's go to as opposed to Kevin just throws something at David and David just pontificates, which is really, I think, that's why you are still number one on the power rankings here at KIDO Talk Radio's Kevin Miller Show. But let's go to your website for a change, foramerica.org, because you've got something from the Daily Wire there. There must be a purge in the Catholic Church, and it must be brutal. I'll tell you, I'm a Catholic. You don't have to be a Catholic. Well, welcome, brother, or good to know, brother. But you don't have to be a Catholic to know something is going wrong here, and it seems to be continuing. Your thoughts?
We could poke a couple of holes in the grand jury report that was released a couple weeks ago out of Pennsylvania, in which it documented 300 different cases, or 300 different priests or brothers or bishops who were sexual abusers, identified those folks. There are a couple of holes. However, I don't think we should discount the document in any way. I think the Catholic Church has a significant, especially in the United States, has a huge problem where you have, I think you have to, at least I do, and it's tough for Catholics to admit this, but I've come to this conclusion that I'm just going to go on the assumption that the hierarchy of the church within the United States, it is with good probability that they are dedicated to a homosexual lifestyle more so than they are dedicated to their faith, to their work, to their job, to the church, to the clergy, and to the parishioners. That there has become a devotion to homosexual living within the Catholic priest community that absolutely needs to be eradicated, and swiftly. And I'm just, the fact that the Pope, and I'm not one of these anti-Francis guys, Kevin, but the fact that this Pope will comment on anything, up to and including climate change, quote unquote, so-called climate change, and lecture everybody on climate change and lecture everyone on immigration. He'll comment on anything and everything, but they refuse to make a comment about this. That really, really bothers me. And I think it should bother Catholics across the country. My attitude going forward is I want to have a direct relationship with my church and my parish. And when it comes to dogma, I want to utilize that relationship to explore dogma within the Catholic Church and how I can be better toward the faith in that regard. But when it comes to the hierarchy of the church, I'm done. I'm done until there is a swift removal of a number of folks that are being protected for too many years.
Well, and having worked in Pittsburgh, 50% of that city is Catholic. And David Zubek, who was on with George Stephanopoulos, the bishop there, came in from Green Bay, an outstanding person, having known him personally. But when Stephanopoulos went easy on him, he said, look, we're reading from these complaints where you had someone who the church admitted was abused, was molested, and you were in the room when he wanted him to sign that you would pay for his college tuition, but then the issue would be done, resolved, and he was not to speak about it anymore. And I'm going, I don't think that's the way of the gospel.
Right. And you've got, I think, Bill Donahue from the Catholic League, very outspoken. It does not suffer for fools, and I have a whole ton of respect for him. And he penned a memo refuting much of the indictment, and he found some discrepancies, such as there's an accusation that dated as far back as 1908. There are a few date discrepancies with certain memos, specifically regarding with the Archbishop of Washington. Did he transfer a priest before or after he found out that the priest was a sexual abuser? And there's a date of a memo that could exonerate the Archbishop. But again, we're quibbling over some details here that I think some folks are focused on the wrong details.
Bill has been with the Catholic League for years, and as you said, there's no greater defender of the faith, but you still have to acknowledge there's an issue here. And as you've said, David Bozell with us from ForAmerica.org at KIDOTalkRadio.com, there has to be zero tolerance for this.
Yeah. And I'm kind of, I go to two different churches because they're equidistant from my home. I understand that one spoke about this and one did not. and I want to go, the mass that I went to on Sunday, it was spoken about. But there's one church that my children go to did not bring it up. And I'm going to have that conversation, with my parish. What is your response to this? And I better be satisfied. I think it's important for Catholics, lay Catholics, to be more involved and to be more present.
That's tough for us because of how we respect the priests and everything else that is, ingrained in our thoughts. Look, I had a homily. We went, I have to say, I'm probably not as strident as you. I go every week, but when we're going over an hour here, I didn't know I was going to the Baptist church and didn't mention it at all. And I'm like, the Catholics, we're very ritualistic. We like the schedule. Okay, that's stuff for the homily father. Okay, let's get rolling here. And, of course, here we are. We spent an hour together with each other. And I'm sure this is like this. I hope it isn't for other churches. And then it's warfare on the parking lot to find out, to fight to who can get out of church faster.
Well, depending on if you've gotten your sugar rush from the donut and the orange juice on your way out.
Right.
Because then it's Katie bar the door.
Right. Exactly.
If you've gotten that cup of coffee and donut, look out. It's you're right. I growing up, as Catholics, I mean, you hold so many priests with such high regard.
Right.
You don't want to interfere. You feel they've been called, right, by God, and so who are we to tell them what time to do their jobs? But at least in the short term, it's just going to be up to the Catholic lady to kind of stick her nose into places that perhaps we haven't been traditionally been comfortable in order to make sure that in order to protect the church going forward.
Well, even today, I mean, and you and I are traditional. A father. It's not, hey, your first name or whatever. Usually it's, father, their last name. I mean, that's how ingrained it is with us for people that are non-Catholics. It's, you address him as Bill, you address him as Father Bill.
Right. I witnessed some of this stuff as a kid. I went to an altar service retreat in the neighborhood, about 20 minutes away from my home, and it was a sleepover thing. And we were watching a movie or something, and I witnessed a seminarian and someone who was putting on the event. I don't think that they were part of the church, and they were sitting back to back and just touching two guys and just touching each other's legs. And while this movie was playing about how great it is to be an altar boy. And I thought, nope, I'm out of here. And I called my parents and I made something up. I said, I got to get out of here. I want to go home. And they came and picked me up. And so that was 30 years ago. So it's been going on for many, many decades. I don't know what it is about the American seminary in particular that seems to, at least if you believe the tenets of the indictment, seems to recruit an inordinate amount of those with have a preference for homosexuality, particularly within the American church. But if the Pope is not going to get involved, and the Vatican is not going to get involved, and we want the Catholic Church to thrive, it's going to be up to us.
Well, and then you have, and this is the sad thing, people question their faith, and then you have good priests that, they're called, and that God is first with them and the parish. Then you have them being stained with this.
Right. Absolutely right. It's a real shame, and hopefully the document, snaps some people to attention. I mean, I was at the National Catholic Prayer Breakfast about 6 months ago, and I watched 300 Washington, D.C. Catholics give one standing ovation to another to people within Washington, that have given trillions of dollars to abortion providers. And there's just something wrong with the political financial hierarchy within the United States Catholic Church. And it's, I think the lack of attention to those who are expressing their homosexuality and sexually abusing kids. If you're willing to tolerate that, you're willing to tolerate just about anything.
Our great friend David Bozell joining us, foramerica.org. See, it's been too long. See, it's already time to go.
Well, hey, I appreciate you, Kevin, all the time in Idaho, and critical months ahead in the political space. Critical months.
That's why it's critical that you don't take any time off, or even when you do, you need to be with us because it's critical.
I'm here until November. I am yours. I am Idaho's.
David Bozell, we appreciate you. By the way, we'll be up there in a couple weeks, and I made the pitch to talk to you about lunch, but maybe I'll DM you, and that way hopefully we can make that happen, sir.
Absolutely. I'm there. Let's do it.
Okay. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
All right. See you, Kevin. Take care.
Our great friend David Bozell from foramerica.org. And regardless of your faith, this thing going on with the Catholic Church, it has to be stopped. And the story that we were discussing at 580-5436 is this week with George Stephanopoulos, had the Bishop of Pittsburgh on, David Zubik, who's was a great friend of mine, and they were talking about this plea deal where someone who had been abused, been molested, the church was going to pay for their tuition, but then they had to sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. And I'm thinking to myself, look, most of us aren't lawyers, and the first thing a lawyer is going to say, well, legally, this is how it works. Okay, Lanny Davis, thanks. I don't want to know how Lanny Davis would do it. But if you've wronged someone and, you're a person of faith, I think the gospel teaches us it's more important to get this out, to solve this problem, as opposed to signing an NDA and making the problem go away like it never happened. What do you think? 580-5436. 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Liberal Steve joins us now, our little own batch of sunshine on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Liberal Steve.
Why, Mr. Miller? Why do, you just had this individual on. Why do people give all these ministers and Catholic priests and cardinals and Mormon bishops and a quorum of 70 and 12 and all these people out there, why do they give them so much power? Why do they believe everything they say? I mean, they're not Jesus. They're not Savior. They need to tell us about them. But if you were a pedophile, Kevin, and you were caught, you'd go to prison. None of these priests ever went to prison, and they're still not going to prison. And same in the churches, Protestant, Lutheran. For some reason, they're not just a normal child that grew up who say they found God and want to preach the word, but the same with the president. He's drunk on power. I mean, Kevin, you can't go to church and lie and say, well, the president's been telling the truth all along, and the strawberry man, right to lifer, can't, when he was jumping on everybody else for adultery, he can't stand still and say, well, Trump hasn't committed adultery. That's just the problem, Kevin.
I don't think I've said that. I said I'm going with the Clinton defense. So what?
Well, yeah, what I'm saying, Miller, is you give him power, and you allow him to
What do you mean I give them power?
Okay, if you don't understand what I'm
because
talking about,
you're
Kevin, speaking
in convoluted thoughts. You first started talking about the church, and then you're going into politics, and then you're talking about pro-life. I'm confused.
Well, I'm sorry that you're confused, because it's
well, you're very
You're
very confusing.
It's everything in general. Why do we give them the power? Why do you go to church on Sunday?
What do you mean? Why do I go to church on Sunday?
Was that a tough question?
To practice
Why do you go to church on Sunday?
to be with the parish, to be with like-minded people, to practice my faith, and to give an hour. At least it's the very least I can do to God.
Can't you give an hour at home?
And when you're talking about, we could go into salvation by faith, salvation by works. We can, or the difference between Protestant and Catholicism. Or we could sit there and say, we could talk about legitimate questions. Why do people have hierarchies? Because churches, political organizations have had those for years. That is tradition. That is the way it is. Now, again, if you want to be Joe Protestant and say, I don't need a priest, and I'm going to do it on my own, well, good for you. I'm not as far along the road to salvation as you are. I need to learn more. I need to be better, and going to church and showing God through this one simple act of an hour a week is what I do. And also trying to be a good person and trying not to be a hypocrite and trying to fight the ways of being a sinner.
How about the coach in Ohio?
You're doing your typical liberal, Steve.
No, I'm not.
I've answered your question, and then you move on to another topic. You've been doing this. Hold on. Today is a very special day. 9 years today was my first day here. Okay,
and who was on board?
What? Who was on first?
Who was on board with you day one?
Russell from CUNA.
That's true.
He was the first caller. Pat from Middleton.
I love you.
And, hold on. I love you too, and you. But my point being, and eventually pro-life. However, let me just say this: you've been doing this act with me for 9 years, and gosh knows how many years before that. Yes.
9 years, like 3,000 days almost.
Exactly.
Oh my God! But it is people. They give them this power. They give these coaches this power. They give everybody. They're just human beings. They're just human beings. We give our doctors way too much power.
Right. We give our bosses way too much power. I'm with you. Let's eliminate bosses, and let's eliminate their salaries and everything else. And we'll. You're right. Thank you. Look, to Jeff the Suit. To corner office Kevin, I humbly, thanks to Liberal Steve, have been emancipated from listening to you as my authority. We don't need you because we're just going to decide things on our own. So you have no more power over me. By the way, I'd like to be compensated more. That's the type of fantasy that Liberal Steve's talking about. And I said that with a straight face. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin.
Hard-hitting news. That's what we're doing. By the way, Pro-Life, Pat, and Scott, we'll get to you in a minute. Joined now by Tani J. Powers, Fox News Radio from Midtown Manhattan, the Avenue of the Americas. Good morning.
That's okay. I recognize that shade for me. It's okay.
No, that's where you guys are, right? Avenue of the Americas.
Yes, you mentioned the hard-hitting story, and I can't help but think that's what you were trying to convey about my topic today.
You report, we decide. In-depth team coverage. I think you're a little overly sensitive to this story.
No, actually, I like this story. I thought this was an amusing story. When I saw this yesterday, and when they told me I was going to get to talk about this today, I was like, "Oh, good," because it's just kind of fun.
Well, I don't, it is outside your realm of expertise. That would be politics. So let's get or commenting on Urban Meyer. So we'll go with the story that you're going to talk about. Animal crackers packages lose their cages after PETA complains. Is this not America? They're not in their cages. They're running wild and free.
They're not in their cages. Well, we are about freedom here in the U.S., so, there you go. I mean, that may be one way to look at it. PETA apparently asked the Nabisco folks, hey, do you think we could maybe get them out of their cages? And the Nabisco folks responded by doing a packaging redo and said, okay, I guess so, And so now instead of being, how the old ones look, they had the four animals on the box and like a little train car. They were kind of in their cages, sort of reclining, just kind of hanging out.
They were in their place, and I'm sure, which I'm told I need to be in my place quite a bit. However, I'm sure it wasn't cheap for Nabisco to go, sure, we'll just spend thousands and millions of dollars repackaging it because PETA has an issue.
I don't know how much they spent. I would be interested to know that.
Yeah.
But now they're, kind of coming, like, they look like they're, like, sort of coming towards you. Not necessarily, like, charging towards you, but, they're out of their cages. They're sort of just like, hey, here we are. What's up? It's not quite as, it's a different view. You get the front part of the animal view instead of just the side view, like in the cages. But I have noticed something really interesting.
You've done a lot of research on this story.
I'm about to prove you right on just that statement. I did a lot of research on this, and while I was doing this story this morning, I'm looking at the picture, right? And it's got the 4 animals, and it's got the bars, right? And it's the old one I'm talking about, and it looks like the little train car. When you look at the box and you notice the bars and the animals, the bars are on the other side of the animal, not in front of the animal. So does this mean we're in the cage with the animal?
Who needs the Matrix when you have Tanya J. Powers?
I'm just saying. You look at it. Google this. It's not just me.
You won't hear that from PETA, folks.
I'm telling you, these are the things. These are the things I bring you. This is why you have me on right here.
She is not only our political expert.
I'm telling you, Google it.
Well, we appreciate that. Any thoughts on Urban Meyer and the coach at Ohio State? I know you happen to fancy yourself as somewhat of a sports person.
No, sir. No thoughts at all.
All right. Roll Tide.
And see, I can't agree with that either.
Go Land Sharks.
That's better. I appreciate that.
Tanya J. Powers, thank you very much.
Google it. I'm telling you.
Yeah, well, yes, ma'am. Right on it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, Tanya J. Powers there. There's a little levity. Let's get back to you with me on KIDO Talk Radio. Pro-Life joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio. How about that? Liberal Steve was giving you a shout-out, and you were on hold.
Yep, I was. And, the big problem is that we don't honor God's laws of sexuality. And when civilizations break those, they crumble, fall, get all messed up. And, the best thing Trump could do would if he's committed adultery, he could just say, listen, I committed adultery. I broke God's law. I'm sorry for that. And I'm not going to do that anymore. Well, if all of the people that break God's laws about sexuality would do that, then we could come back to honoring God's law. But we don't do that. And, about Catholic sexuality in the priesthood, for 8 centuries, up until about the end of the 8th century, you had to be married to be a member of the Catholic priesthood. Then, for financial reasons, they went away from that. And they need to go back to having all of the priests married and not have nuns. They could all marry the priest, and we'd have a lot more life. And
you want to get rid of the nuns?
Yeah, they could marry the priests, and then they could have babies.
Just because a woman becomes a nun doesn't mean she should marry a priest.
No, she could marry anybody she wanted to.
You know why they do that? Because God comes first in their lives.
Well, I know he does, but when God really comes first in your life, you get married and have children, and you serve God as a pastor, or however you do. You have a ministry. You decide how can
said from the Protestant perspective.
Well, I'm not a Protestant.
What are you?
I'm an independent Christian, just like Jesus was.
So you're either a Catholic or a Protestant.
No, I like Catholics, and
are you you're born again? You're evangelical?
Yeah, I'm born again.
Right? Aren't we all, brother?
I accept Christ, and I didn't always. I profess Christ, but I didn't always really decide that I'm just going to follow my conscience and follow him and nobody else.
Well, I think we all go through that.
Yeah, we do. But
all
anyway,
right.
that's where we need to head, and I don't know who's going to start doing that, but on the national stage, people need to start doing that. Pro-Life,
God bless. Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you.
Thank you. Well, our great friend Pat from Middleton, the international playboy, has decided to grace us with his presence. It must be a special day.
Well, of course, it's my day. No, it's your day. It's
I love
9
that.
years.
I love that. It's my day. Yes.
I want to talk about me, baby.
Yes, exactly.
No, it's 9 years. I can't believe it's gone that fast. And I pray and hope you have another 9 years somewhere else. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, it's the
you're
longest.
You're married to a local businesswoman. You're not going anywhere, my friend.
Yes, kind of like burn notice. You're not going anywhere. At least, of course, I never ever was planning to go anywhere. The one move that I planned to make without being fired, that lasted about 6 months. So what do I know?
Yeah, well, let's hope for at least one more year so we can have a big old bang-up show on your 10th year.
Right, where you could
for...
where you could be, and we could have. Let's just say it if we make it to year 10, a year from now, you'll host the show and the agenda.
Absolutely, I've got 5 acres with plenty of parking and plenty of room and a nice patio to hold it out on.
Well, I don't know if we'd have it. We don't know if we'd have it at your home. We might have it somewhere.
Oh, having it in my home is beautiful. There's cows and country. It's a great scenery. Yeah. Hey, so a lot of people who don't understand the Catholic Church as pro-life just displayed is that I know a lot of Catholic priests personally, and a lot of them say, "Man, I don't have time. I wouldn't have time to be married, let alone have kids, because their duties they get called out in the middle of the night to go anoint the sick, dead and dying at the hospital. Their workload is so arduous. There's no way they could have a family. But I know personally a lot of new seminarians and the scrutiny they go through now to become a seminarian in the first place. I think we're going to nip this problem in the bud. It's just going to take a while to weed out, because who better to want to destroy the church than the devil? And the devil does what? It helps promote sin and debauchery. And for a long time there, the devil who tried to convince Jesus that he could do better for him than God also has tried to destroy his church from the very beginning. And the Catholic Church has been around since Christ's time. So,
the Catholic Church, the Universal Church, is the first church.
That's absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so, why would the devil not try to destroy it? So, we've been around 2,000 years. We're going to be around another 2,000 years, unless Jesus comes in that meantime. But the point is that the devil wants to destroy us. So he's going to do any means. And the best way to destroy anything is from within. Look at what's being taught now in schools, socialism. Look at how it's widely accepted by the youth. They think that's the better way. That's because they're being taught in the school system that socialism is the better system. And so that's why their mindset is that way. That's how you destroy anything, is by changing the culture and the mindset. And we just got to change the culture back. And I pray for all those priests that are lost souls. Hope they get rid of them and hope that they can be redemptive in their end of the years. But in the meantime, we need to correct course, and I think they're doing that now. I know a lot of seminaries that spend a lot of time being scrutinized before they're accepted into the seminary now.
All right. Pat from Middleton, I can remember when there were 3 callers to this show, you, Russell, and Liberal Steve.
And we got to talk a little longer, and I love the debates with Liberal Steve.
Yes.
I love you, Liberal Steve, but you're wrong about Christian
wrong about everything,
theology, and about the Catholic Church. Most people are, because they don't understand it. They don't try to. But God bless. I hope you have at least one more year, so we can have a bang-up party.
Why not?
And
one more
and
year.
One,
right.
And more than that, I think you're a great guy. I love getting to know you. Although you've never gone to dinner with me like you did with, Cindy, but it's been a little quieter since she's gone.
We love you, Pat. Take care, my friend.
Bye, my friend.
All right, our great friend Pat from Middleton. Let's go to Scott in Caldwell on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning. Hey, has anybody ever recommended decaf for Liberal Steve?
My favorite is Buenos Dias, please. That's a little early, sir. Yes.
Yeah. Hey, I was wondering, you've landed on one of my favorite topics. and I was wondering if there was a priest who was married and he was heading up a Catholic church, how would you feel about attending his church?
For me, I wouldn't be down with it.
You wouldn't?
No, I wouldn't.
Mind if I ask you why?
Well, I'm 50 years old, and the way that I've been
You're
taught.
Just a kid.
Exactly. I'm just a kid. I would have a tough time, but I've had, truthfully, Scott, I have a tough time with female altar servers. I have a tough time with with all of a sudden we raise our hands in mass now, all the new age stuff. I have a hard time with priests that say, "You people that like the old ways, ha ha," and I'm like, dude, well, what's wrong with history? But that's my own bias.
Because one of your previous callers was talking about a time in the church when the clergy were allowed to marry. And I just can't help but wonder what the state of the church that I have an awful lot of love for. I told Ray I'm part Catholic. That I just can't help but wonder what the state of the church would be like if it was an option for clergy to marry.
Well, many people believe that it would be our problems would be solved, and more than likely they would. On the other hand, there's more expenses, and then as our Protestants brothers and sisters, then you've got to deal with the priest's wife or the minister's wife and more politics and children. I mean, the whole paragon, and again, I understand that priests used to be married, but on the other hand, when you commit to this, your number one priority is serving God and serving the flock. And the argument against priests marrying is that, then when you're a family, your family should come first. So that's why I'm a follower, not a leader, Scott.
I listen to you, and there's no doubt in my mind that you put God first in your life.
I do. I try my best.
Yeah, and you do. And I guess that's when I heard you talk about, you made a statement about nuns putting God first. I thought, for heaven's sakes, Kevin Miller does that every day. No, you're not perfect. None of us are. But I still had to just run it by you. Wondered how you would feel about the option of clergy getting married. Anyway, I love it when you open up like this, the fact that you are so honest and transparent. We are spiritual beings first, physical second, and I think you do such an outstanding job of keeping the focus where it should be on a day-to-day basis, whether it's your aim or not. You put God first, and it shows every time you get on the air.
Well, it takes one to know one, Scott, so God bless you, and I'll try to live up to that, sir.
You do. You do, brother. Keep fighting the good fight.
You too. God bless.
God bless.
Great to hear from Scott in Caldwell. Joe and Murray, and hang on, Tea Party Bob, hang on. Your call's next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. To the publisher of the Gem State Patriot, gemstatepatriot.com, Tea Party Bob, good morning. We have Mountain Home looking to woo you there. I know you're always looking for the most conservative place in the Treasure Valley. Would that be of interest to you, sir?
Yeah, it's one of the places I'm looking. Thanks, Pete, for letting me know that you guys are real conservative down there. I haven't been out there yet, but I've been close by there. We'll have to take a little bit more of a look around, but I'm getting close. Is there anything you can do to convince Liberal Steve to stop calling into the show? And he makes less sense every day you have him on. I just wanted to say a few things about the latest rant from the liberal media about President Trump. First of all, he has done nothing wrong, and there have been no real charges leveled against him except those by the liberal media and Cohen's attorney, Lonnie Davis, who used to be Hillary Clinton's attorney. Second, the money that was paid out to the bimbos by Cohen came from Trump's personal accounts and was not a campaign violation of any sort. And just think about the $3 million that Obama received illegally and had to pay a $375,000 fine. You don't hear a word about that in the media. Third, there is no evidence of Russian collusion yet again. None. We all make bad choices in the people we associate ourselves with, and Trump is not immune from that. The fact that both his lawyer and the former campaign manager were crooks has nothing to do with collusion or Trump himself. It just means he had some bad judgments at some point in time. Think about all the bad choices Obama made in the 8 years of his reign that the media never publicized. Now, the raging liberal media promoting all this fake news as fast as humanly possible to convince as many uninformed people that Trump is bad is just ridiculous. I have several friends who are Republicans but listen to this garbage being spewed out by the press and have actually begun to question whether they should be voting Republican in the November election. All I'm going to say is that if we don't stick together as conservatives and get out and vote in November, we're going to see much of what Trump has done over the past 2 years go down the drain. And we're going to be stuck in a swamp once again, listening to Pelosi and Schumer screaming for Trump's head on a stake. So
fair enough, Tea Party Bob. All right. Thank you. Traffic and weather together. Good morning, Dave. Alice in Boise. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Alice, you'll bring us home. Alice. Well, Alice.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
You've
got 40 seconds. Bring us home, please.
Okay. I'm thinking chaperones for the altar boys.
Chaperones.
Chaperones. A parent to be with the young men all of the time. That's my thought.
Well, Alice.
The parents are obligated to keep their children safe, and sending them there, the odds are really low, I know. But at the same time, that's endangerment of a child.
Alice, your thoughts are welcome here with us on KIDO Talk Radio anytime. God bless.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Alice. Ray Maya, great job. Everyone else, thank you all for listening. Glenn Beck's next. God bless and keep the faith.